Are you ready?
Yeah, baby.
Are you ready?
I'm always ready. Get ready. Get set. Hit it.
I saw you were with them last night. I saw you were with them last night. Don't burn the bridge, burn the paper.
Yeah, that's Don't Burn the Bridge by Billy D, a.k.a. me. Coming to a venue live in the next few weeks, Sean. We're going to be putting our toe back in the water again. I've been getting a lot of encouragement, shall I say, both on a friendly level and a what the heck are you doing? Why aren't you out there level? So we'll see. I mentioned to you that Sally and I are going to start our baseball tournament, or not baseball, our baseball stadium review, if you will. April 20th, our first trip is to St. Louis, the bowel movement of the National League. And that's our first stop, and then after that, we'll probably go to the White Sox because that's the bowel movement of the American League, dare I say. I am not a White Sox fan. I'm not a White Sox fan. I will tip my cap to them just because they're from Chicago, but I heard this on the radio the other day. You are either a Cubs fan or you're a Sox fan. You are not both. There's no mental capacity to be a Cub fan and a Sox fan. And if you are, you're a politician. But when we come by way of Cincinnati or Cleveland, I will likely have my guitar, and if I can plan it right, Sean, and I can get my toe in the water, maybe we can find a venue and Kelly can come up and play bass for me. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, got to get some music out of that girl.
Yeah. Yeah. So, welcome back, everybody. That's Sean Hauser. My name is Bill Miksch. I'm president of WDMA Financial Group in Grays Lake, Illinois. This is your Insurance Corner at 101.5 FM, WLCB, Slades Corner, Wisconsin. We are talking about out-of-network providers and the genesis of how they start. And now I want to ask, how they get there, or who are these doctors and who are these providers in the hospitals, etc. Now we're going to address the critical issue of how to deal with this. Now, typically, in an emergency situation, you're not going to have any time to plan. Nobody in their right mind is going to go on the website to go, who are the emergency room doctors and the anesthesiologist and the radiologist and the pathologist at my local hospital so that I make sure that the providers that are working on me are in network. Nobody's going to do that. More to the point, the vast majority of us who walk into a hospital believe that the people that are working there all are employed there, including the doctors. Full stop. Everybody works there, is employed there. They are employees of that hospital. There's nothing further from the truth. So let's take my example of the maxillofacial doctor who actually did a procedure a week ago Friday on my client's son. The doctor did the right thing. He said he's not in anybody's network. So he did the right thing. This was a week before the surgery. He also told them they actually did a little bit of homework, and they found out that the physician, that there's only one other physician in a 50-mile radius, Sean, that does the kind of procedure that was required here. Now, when you look up maxillofacial doctors on the internet for the carrier that I was looking for, it's a big one, most of the doctors in that space are dentists that are doing implants. There is a big difference between doing an implant and reconstructing somebody's orbital or nasal cavity. Big difference. And to that doctor's credit, he actually did try to help the patient to some degree. Still, while that's nice, and the parents of the child liked this doctor. He happened to be on call that night. That's how they knew about him. The reality is that they're going to be stuck with a $30,000 medical bill by the time the surgery is all well and done. So in an emergency situation, you're not supposed to be balance billed. But now we're a week later, and now is it an emergency or is it not an emergency? So the first way to try to get around this is to ask the physician if he would bill under the hospital's NPI number, which stands for National Provider Index Number, NPI number. Every physician, every medical provider has one. And if the physician is willing to bill under the hospital's NPI number, that's the easiest path of resistance that you can go to, because now the bills will be taken care of. Everybody's in network. It's all hunky-dory. That's the first aspect of this, and you need to be able to know to ask that question up front. The second option is a little harder, which is the procedure deemed to be an emergency or not? Now, when it's a true emergency, it's kind of a no-brainer. I broke my leg a long time ago, Joe Theismann style. And for those of you who are old enough to know, yeah, it was pretty bad. The accident happened on a Friday or Saturday. It was Valentine's Day weekend. We were up at the Heidel House in Green Lake, Wisconsin. And I did something stupid while I was ice skating, and I broke my leg in two places. I had surgery the next day. Was that considered an emergency surgery? Or by virtue of the fact that we waited 24 hours, it's no longer an emergency? Notwithstanding the fact that if I didn't have the surgery, my leg was going to be completely messed up for the rest of my life. And if you saw the break, Sean, you would know. It was bad. So is that an emergency? And now, talking about this 14-year-old boy, it was a week later. Why was it a week later? His face was severely swollen from the injury from the baseball. An MRI and a CAT scan might be somewhat helpful, but because of the swelling, they can't pick up a lot of the damage that was done until the swelling goes down. Well, that could take a couple of days. And now you're Friday, now into Monday or Tuesday, and because it's a facial fracture, the physician's going, if we don't do something by Monday, the bones are going to start to reset and it's going to get uglier, which he's not wrong about. He's absolutely right. So is that deemed an emergency surgery, even though it was a week later? I could make an argument to say yes, because the physician could not reasonably do the procedure to fix this kid's face, given the amount of swelling, until the swelling went down, and then they needed time to do a CAT scan or an MRI to assess the damage. And then they needed time to check with the insurance company, because God knows you got to pre-certify the surgery, and then you've got to make space at the hospital to have the procedure, which also means you have to get your radiologist probably involved, your anesthesiologist involved, all the staffing, the tools that you need to go about doing the particular surgery. So there's a lot to go into setting up a surgery, even if it's deemed quote-unquote an emergency. So that's the second way to handle it, is it deemed an emergency? And if it is, that doctor can't pull the I'm not in anybody's network thing. It's got to be treated as an in-network claim. The third approach is a little bit more difficult, and that's where you go to the higher up of the administration. You don't deal with the claims or the billing person, because they're not able to make these decisions. You got to go higher. So whenever I have this situation, I will write letters to the CEO, the chief financial officer, and the chief operating officer of the hospital. They all get the same letter, they all get the same message, and they all hear, bill's coming. And we're going to have a conversation about this situation. And that conversation is going to go into, one, transparency rules. Was it evident that this doctor was in network given the emergency level of the injury? Did the patient have enough time to look around? And like I said, they did their homework to some degree. They found one doctor in a 50-mile radius. That's not reasonable. That's not reasonable. And the third one is, and this is the hot button for me, how come that doctor is not, if he's a part of the staff here, how come he wasn't told to sign at least 1 or 2 medical contracts so that stuff like this doesn't happen? Because, Mr. Administrator, your customer is now financially impugned because this doctor is not in anybody's network, and they're going to demand full payment. And here's what's worse, Sean. In a lot of the plans, particularly small group companies, the out-of-network plans don't have a maximum out-of-pocket. It's unlimited. So let's just say it's a $30,000 medical bill, and you have a $10,000 deductible. The reasonable person would go, well, $10,000 comes off the 30, and so I got 20 left, and that's going to be paid 50-50. So that means I'm going to owe 10, and the insurance company is going to pay 10. That's not how this works. The insurance carrier is going to pay what's considered reasonable and customary. Ergo, they're going to pay what the PPO doctor got paid. That's what they're going to get paid. So that $30,000 bill, maybe $5,000 gets applied to the deductible. That leaves $25,000 left. And they're going to pay half of the $25,000, but at a 50% share of that. So 25, that's $12,500. They'll pay 50% of the $12,500, and the rest is on you. And if the rest is on you and you've got no lifetime or you've got an unlimited maximum out of network, the whole bill of $30,000 is going to fall on your lap. I can promise you that's what's going to happen. So that third conversation, you probably should get some help from somebody like me who knows their way around this process, is going to do their due diligence. The first thing I always ask, Sean, is what's your relationship with that doctor? Because I'm not willing to, I don't want to throw bombs on the guy, but I'm gonna have to throw at least one grenade to say this is not fair. So that's the third approach. Now, there was a circumstance, this was a while ago, my son was going to have a frenectomy, and his tongue was basically tied to that little piece of skin when he was a child, and he couldn't stick out his tongue. So I took the extra step. We looked at 2 different hospitals, and I wanted to know if the anesthesiologist was in network at both hospitals. One hospital, the anesthesiologist was not in network, and this was not an emergency. This was a planned procedure. And the other hospital, the anesthesiologist was. So it was kind of a no-brainer. I didn't care what the hospital procedure was. I didn't care where the procedure was going to go. It didn't matter because the surgeon had admitting privileges at both places. But I took the extra step to do that. Now, you can, as a consumer, check with the hospital. Are the staff anesthesiologists, radiologists, pathologists, ER doctors in your particular network? And you don't say, do you take Blue Cross? Do you take Cigna? Do you take Aetna? Do you take United Healthcare? You never say, do you take? You have to be specific. Are they in the core network with United Healthcare? Are they in the Blue Preferred Select or Blue Preferred Choice in the Blue Cross network, or HMO Advantage or HMO Illinois? Are they in Local Plus with Cigna? You have to be specific about the network so that it becomes an answerable question. If you simply say, do you take United or you take Blue Cross, the answer is always going to be, yeah, we take those. They didn't say if they were in network. They just said they took the insurance. You took that as you're in my network. Not necessarily, folks. Got to ask the right question. So, and I'm going to digress here a second here. I kind of jumped ahead of a couple things. Medicare. Medicare doctors, you don't have the same problems in Medicare as you do with these networks, particularly if you have a supplement. Medicare Advantage plans, you have the same problem. Folks, you have the same problem with Medicare Advantage, unless it's an HMO, as you do with these PPO plans in the corporate world or an individual policy. But as long as the doctor accepts Medicare, you're good. Hospitals have to accept Medicare, so you never have a problem, with the possible exception of a private hospital, which many of those don't exist any longer. But the doctors have to accept Medicare. If they don't, that claim won't be paid by anybody. If Medicare doesn't pay the claim, your supplement will not pay the claim. Full stop. So if you're on Medicare and you've got a supplement, just make sure your doctors accept Medicare. That's all you have to do. And that's the question you ask. With HMOs, it should be pretty simple. Short of an emergency, you have to get a referral to whoever you're going to see as a specialist, including going to the ER in an HMO. As long as you get that referral, you're good to go. If it's a true emergency, you'll get the referral after the fact. So in an HMO, you should not have a problem. However, I have seen, Sean, where people go on their own and think that they can go out of network, and they find out the hard way that they're not covered. So if you're going to be in an HMO and you decide you want to go see somebody else, that's okay. Just bring your checkbook. Just bring your checkbook. You also have plans out there called EPOs, which are exclusive provider organizations. What that means in English, Sean, is that there's no out-of-network benefits at all. It's a PPO plan with no out-of-network benefits. And quite honestly, given these days, even if there's a plan with out-of-network benefits, because of the reasonable and customary charges, you're going to be on the hook for the whole thing. Now, I want you to set yourself aside for a second. Sean, I'm going to come to you and say, Sean, I want to borrow your checkbook. And I'm going to go grocery shopping, and you're going to pay the bill. How amenable would you be for me to do that?
Say that again. You're going to send me a bill?
I'm going to go to the grocery store, but I want to take your checkbook. You're going to sign the check on the front of the check, and I'm going to take your checkbook, and I'm going to go buy groceries. And you're not going to know what the bill's going to be until after I come back. How friendly will you be to me towards that end?
Yeah, I don't know. You'd probably bring back some cold ones to share and maybe some snacks. Maybe that'd be all right. But if you're going to go there and buy a couple of halves of cows, I don't think I'm going to be real happy when I get that bank statement.
I didn't tell you what I was going to buy, did I? Right? I didn't say anything I was going to buy, right? So I could be going to the butcher, for all you know, and buying a cow at $1,000 or whatever it might cost. That's exactly what happens in the medical community. And it's sad, and I don't know the answer. The No Surprise Act is a nice step, but these so-called transparency rules that are out there, they don't work. It's not like you can go to an emergency room or a hospital and say, what's it cost for a knee replacement? I can give you a general idea, but until I actually get in there as a physician and find out that I've got a bigger problem than I thought, I may have been off by $20,000 or $10,000. Or what's an x-ray cost? Well, it depends. Am I doing just a straight x-ray? Or am I putting iodine or isotopes in your bloodstream so I can illuminate your body to see what I'm looking for? What's involved? How many different pictures do I have to take? What's that code look like? It would be tantamount to going to your mechanic, and the mechanic, you're there for an oil change, and he comes back with a $4,000 bill, and he says, I'm sorry, Sean, you needed a new engine. $4,000. How are you going to pay? Would you accept that bill?
No.
No. Nobody would. But we acquiesce to the medical community because it's so confusing and so overwhelming, and then we see the cost of the care, and then you see the discounts if you're able to read the explanation of benefits. And this $30,000 bill from this hospital in Tennessee that I'm dealing with, the discounts, Sean, were like $28,500. They charged $30,000 as if he didn't have insurance, And then they assume the discounts were $28,500. Now, if you knew what you're reading, you're like, oh, great, I got a $1,500 bill. Why did we start at $30,000? Why? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And these out-of-network doctors make it worse because they're not subject to anybody's rules. Now, there's one other thing I want to bring up, and all of us have to do this. Sean, whenever you go into a doctor's office, do they give you a tablet or a clipboard with a bunch of piece of papers on it that say, here, review this and sign them?
Yeah.
Yep. Do you think there's one page that says, this is a consent form that says anything that's not covered by the insurance company is going to be paid by you? Do you think that's a form that's on there?
Well, I'm sure there's someone there somewhere.
Yeah, I promise you there is. And that's required by all physicians, whether they're in network or not, to give that to you. This is a catch-22. On the one hand, you can say, I'm not signing that. And the doctor has the right to say, well, I'm not treating you. That's not fair. That violates the Hippocratic Oath on so many different levels I can't even comment. But the doctor's running a business, not just a medical practice. He's running a business. And he's trying to protect his bottom line. And his bottom line has been impugned since the Affordable Care Act was passed, because we've gone from out-of-pockets that were somewhat reasonable at $2,500 to $5,000 to out-of-pockets that go up as high as $9,150 now this year. And a lot of doctors are being stiffed, so these doctors are now asking for money up front, asking for people to sign these consent forms, otherwise they're not treating you. Now, in a hospital situation, it gets a little more dicey, because if you're sitting there in a hospital room and you've got IVs stringing from your arms, you've got no ability to make a choice. You've got no ability to shop around. You've got no ability to say, can I get a second opinion? Because your medical condition might be such that if something doesn't happen now, bad things are going to happen. And it becomes a conundrum. And the doctor that walks in with the white coat and says, Sean, just so you know, I'm the guy, I'm the assistant surgeon on this. I'm not in network, just so you know, sign the piece of paper. What are you going to do? You're going to have the surgery.
Well,
yeah.
Well, if you're in there and it's an emergency situation, then I think you'll be a little more amenable to it. But if it's not, it has to be done right away. I know personally, I'm going to be like, wait a minute, I want to ask some questions first before
And what if you can't? What if it's not an emergency, but your cognitivity is a bit challenged? It's not that Kelly won't be able to answer questions. Do you think Kelly's even going to care? She's going to be like, get him in the emergency room, or get him in the bar.
You are at a disadvantage, obviously, in those kind of situations, because you went to the hospital, or you were taken to the hospital because something's broken, something hurts, or something's wrong.
Yep. And
it's not going to be a question of, now would I maybe go to a different clinic if they offered better snacks? You don't make those decisions, but yeah, I get where you're going.
Yep. So it's a tough situation. There's no easy answer to these out-of-network doctors. Ask for the NPI number to be billed under the hospital. Ask the hospital staff if they can help with the bill. Or find another doctor if you have the time and the commitment to find another doctor, even if it's in a different state. Understand your medical plan, particularly if you're going to end up seeing a provider that's out of the network, because I can promise you they will be balance billing you. They have every right to do so. And if you went in there and signed a bunch of pieces of paper and didn't realize that one of them was a consent form to say you agree to pay the bill no matter if the insurance company pays it or not, that's a contract. Whether you like it or not, that's a contract. So you have to protect your checkbook. And then lastly, engage somebody like me as a professional who is willing and able to. And by the way, Sean, a lot of brokers won't do this because they find it to be a HIPAA violation. They just won't get involved. But I do.
Well, you have to be careful, obviously.
Yeah, but at the same time, that's what we get paid. We get paid to service the account. And if it happens to the owner, he's going to want me involved. If it happens to his key person, he's going to want me involved. But there's a lot of brokers that won't do this. A lot of them will, however. So if you find an advisor who can help you, then do it. And let the chips fall where they may. We can't make any promises that we can fix it. I've got a good track record of fixing things, and I've got a phone call on Thursday with this hospital in Tennessee. I'll let you know how it goes next week. I'm optimistic. Yeah, I'm optimistic. So with that in mind, Sean, we're at the top of the hour. It is almost 7 o'clock Central Time. Sean, thank you again for joining Your Insurance Corner. It's always a privilege to have the brains of the outfit on the radio show. I'm just the mouthpiece.
You're welcome, Bill.
You're welcome. Have a great night. Have a great weekend. Sean, say hello to Kelly, and we will see you guys next week. This is Your Insurance Corner. My name is Bill Miksch at 101.5 FM WLCB, Slate's Corner. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.